Drug Dealers Anonymous.
The most important thing in business is honesty, integrity, hard work, family, never forgetting where we came from.
Frank Lucas was born on September 9th, 1930 in LaGrange, North Carolina. Growing up in a poor family, he faced numerous challenges that would shape his future. After his father, a farmer, passed away and his mother struggled to make ends meet, he was forced to leave home at the young age of 15. However, it was the death of his cousin, tragically unalived by the Klan, that pushed him deeper into crime. This loss ignited a fire within him and set him on the path to becoming a significant player in the drug trade. He moved to New York City, where he sought a better life, but instead found himself immersed in the world of crime. This world was raw and unforgiving, filled with the promise of wealth, but intertwined with the dangers of violence and loss. Initially, he resorted to petty crimes, hustling on the streets and learning the ins and outs of urban survival.
And they took and tied a rope on both his arms, on each one of his arms, and spread them out. The other guy with the free hand, he took a double-barrel shotgun and jammed it in his mouth. Pulled the trigger simultaneously.
The brutality affected Lucas profoundly.
From that day on, I've been kind of like, hey, you know what? Anybody can die for no reason. So that's where I started.
In the late 1940s, he quickly fell under the wing of the influential crime boss Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy was a powerful figure in the Harlem drug scene, known for his strategic thinking and control over various illegal operations, including gambling and narcotics. Frank Lucas learned the ropes of organized crime from Bumpy, how to navigate the treacherous waters of loyalty and betrayal.
Right through the hand, cutting out the supplier, the middleman, buying direct, putting Americans out of work. That's the way it is now, Frank.
Bumpy's mentorship was invaluable, but his death in 1968 left a power vacuum that Frank Lucas was determined to fill. After Bumpy's death, Frank Lucas turned to drug trafficking and realized that to be successful, he would have to break the monopoly that the mafia held over the trade in New York. Traveling to Bangkok, he eventually made his way to Jack's American Star Bar, an R&R hangout for black soldiers. There he met former U.S. Army Master, Sergeant Leslie Ike Atkinson, who was from Goldsboro, North Carolina, and married to one of Frank Lucas' cousins. Atkinson, who was already running heroin for his own profit and had links to local opium growers, formed a partnership with Frank Lucas. He trusted only relatives and close friends from North Carolina to handle his various heroin operations, believing that they were less likely to steal from him and be tempted by various vices in the big city.
Frank Lucas, he was dealing with a homeboy, his Sarge, who was stationed over there in Bangkok.
We used to call him the Fat Man. Leslie Atkinson was, in my opinion, the most important Asian drug trafficker.
The North Carolina mob is run by men who know a lot about the military. 10 of the top men in this organization are former sergeants in the Army or the Air Force. Federal authorities identify this man as the head of the North Carolina mob, Leslie Ike Atkinson, Goldsboro, North Carolina, former Master Sergeant, United States Army.
Frank Lucas and Ike Atkinson. Ike had the connection over in the Golden Triangle because he was a soldier over there. He was related somehow to Frank Lucas, I think by marriage. And now Frank could get his drugs from Ike at dirt course.
It was during this time that Frank Lucas introduced his heroin brand known as Blue Magic. This product didn't just fill the market, it set a new standard for purity and quality that delighted users and established his reputation as a formidable player in the drug trade. His network grew rapidly, expanding throughout Harlem and into other neighborhoods across New York City. With Frank Lucas's rising prominence came inevitable conflict, particularly with Nicky Barnes, another powerful figure in the Harlem drug scene. Barnes, known as Mr. Untouchable, was the leader of the Council, a coalition of drug dealers who controlled a significant portion of the heroin trade in Harlem. As Lucas emerged with his own operation, tensions mounted between the two men. Nicky Barnes operated under a more traditional structure, relying on a network of dealers to distribute his product and maintain his influence. In contrast, Lucas's approach was more direct and aggressive. Conflict ensued as Lucas's success began to encroach upon Barnes' territory, leading to a rivalry marked by competition. This competition was not just about territory, it was a battle for respect, power, and dominance in the drug trade.
This is the feud between Frank and Nicky, reputation.
And they were both operating in the same playground, basically, Harlem. Harlem was their center. Harlem is where they lived. Harlem is where the neighborhood saw these people, but their distribution chain was up and down the eastern seaboard.
Most people think that you guys were competitors and you hated each other, but it seems like you guys were buddies. Is that so? What is the case here?
As Nick, I was a good friend of Nick.
We were competitors, but we were competitors.
Is when you chop my dope down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, and then you call it Blue Magic. That is trademark infringement. You understand what I'm saying?
What do you want, Frank? You want me to change the name on it?
I would have to insist that you change the name.
Fine by me, Frank. I'll call it Red Magic.
Yeah, just don't let me catch you doing this again.
Catch me? Infringement, insist? I don't like these words as much as please. Thank you. I'm sorry to bother you, Nicky. These are better words you use. You coming to my motherfucking club without an invitation. Hear me?
Oh, man.
As Frank Lucas's empire grew, he embraced a life of excess. He amassed enormous wealth, owning multiple properties, flashy cars, and luxurious items that embodied his newfound status. He often celebrated his successes openly, captivating the attention of the media and local residents. Despite the dangers of his lifestyle, he maintained a reputation as a philanthropist within the Harlem community. He would often host holiday events, such as distributing turkeys at Thanksgiving, which garnered a loyal following among locals who appreciated his generosity. Yet, beneath this facade of benevolence lay the destructive reality of his business.
You have to remember, these drug dealers are making millions and millions of dollars. They're taking your innocent treasures, your children, and making them drug addicts. They'll give them drugs for free, and they know they have them hooked for the rest of their lives. So they'll give you a turkey for Thanksgiving, or they'll give you some money so you won't be evicted from your house, and the word is that you were a good person. But that was only superficial.
As the heroin epidemic escalated, law enforcement turned its focus to Frank Lucas and his operation. In January 1975, his home in Teaneck, New Jersey, was raided by a task force consisting of 10 agents from Group 22 of the US DEA and 10 New York Police Department detectives attached to the Organized Crime Control Bureau. In his house, authorities found $584,683 in cash, though Frank Lucas contended that the officers executing the search departed with the full $11 million temporarily stored in his attic and documented only 5% of the currency seized. Frank Lucas was convicted of both federal and New Jersey state drug violations, with the case against him built largely on over 2 years of investigative work and penetration of his distribution network by the Z-Team, Eddie Jones, Al Spearman, and Benny Abruzzo, he was sentenced to 70 years in prison. Frank Lucas then cut a deal to provide information that led to over 100 additional drug-related convictions. In exchange, he and his family entered the Witness Protection Program. While this decision saved him from a life sentence, it marked a dramatic shift from criminal kingpin to snitch.
He was a prolific heroin dealer, and he did still have connections. He would, even though the word was out, sort of, that he was cooperating, he still had the ability to convince people on the street that he wasn't. He had a knack, like I said before, for convincing people on the phone. He worked the phones all day long while in jail, trying to convince people on the street that he would never give them up, and would they meet one of his people who would be an undercover DEA agent.
You know what you gotta do. What you want me to do, snitch? Huh? I know you don't want to give up no cops. What you want? You want gangsters? They've been bleeding Harlem dry since they got off the boat, Richie. I don't give a fuck about no crime figures. You can have them.
After serving a reduced sentence, he was in the Witness Protection Program, but adjusting to civilian life proved challenging. The allure of his past life lingered, and he struggled with the repercussions of what he had done. His attempts at a normal life often fell short, leaving him feeling disconnected from the person he once was. In 1984, he was caught and convicted of trying to exchange 1 ounce of heroin and $13,000 for 1 kilogram of cocaine. He received a sentence of 7 years and was released from prison in 1991. In 2012, while living in Newark, he pleaded guilty to attempting to cash a $17,000 federal disability benefit check twice. Due to his advanced age and his poor health, which included his restriction to a wheelchair, prosecutors agreed to a sentence of 5 years probation. In the years that followed, Frank Lucas made several media appearances, sharing his story and experiences. His life was dramatized in the film American Gangster, featuring Denzel Washington, which not only highlighted his rise and fall, but also opened discourse about the complexities of his character.
Frank Lucas basically ran Harlem in the 70s. He was the most notorious gangster in the history of America. He's a force of nature.
Reflecting on the life of Frank Lucas captures more than just the story of a drug lord. It portrays the complexity of human ambition in a world where the stakes are high and the consequences are dire. His life sheds light on the struggle against poverty, the seduction of power, and the heavy toll of addiction.